Hi. This is a bit of a developer commentary for the rooms of ClickTuck's Lokoroko themed smash hit mod, formerly known as GeoJab Hit. The first room of GeoJab was extremely different in early development, with you being a lot closer to the ground being water, and there being whatever they're called, the things that you see in Checkpoint 3 of base smash hit, but there's 4 of them instead of 2. Room 2, 3, 4, and 5, I don't really remember much of, other than the fact that 3 had some rooms added to it later in development, closer to full release after midway point. 4 was originally going to be rebalanced. So was 5. There's this issue with 5 where there's this decal that I just can't move for some reason. It's the giant veal. Oh, hi Shelly, I'm recording. That was one of the cats. Champlin. That was originally all the mod was going to have in addition to GeoJab. It was going to be just GeoJab and Champlin originally, before it turned into what it is now. Room 1 was fairly interesting. It had like 5 different music swaps. Originally 27. No wait, 27's what it uses now. Originally it was going to be 28, which later got switched to CL Custom 1. And then I think it went to 9, and then to 27, where it is now. Room 2, there used to be this issue, it's still in midway point, where I used the hit block obstacle instead of the drop block obstacle for the blocks that drop. Yeah, really big blunder. Room 3 kinda necessitated me to make a bit of an edit to the panel obstacle seen in Checkpoint 2 of Face Game, and it required me to add a modifier that lets it switch between glass and stone, which of course forced me to retroactively edit GeoJab Room 3 since it also used that obstacle. And later in development, after the second one where the blocks drop on you, a segment was added with a time slow. There's also one in GeoJab Room 1 behind Minati, but that's less important. It was an interesting point in development because then there's Room 4, big empty Checkpoint 2 Room 4 vibes. I really wanted to elicit that. If I could have got particles to work, I would have used the snowfall particles. And that takes us to the final checkpoint of Midway demo, Kalokaro. Room 1 was where I eventually finally decided to use custom GeoJab2.og. Really fits there. I really like how that room came out. Room 2, however, wasn't exactly the greatest until I went back and added some greebling to it. Really important change. I added a bunch of bumpy things to the roof there, and it's very much supposed to be Checkpoint 10 Room 2, except with a an explosive ball instead of a time slot. That was actually inspired by another custom room that I later put in as as one of the bonus rooms. No idea who made it. I'm assuming Gavin Meow. But room 3, Steel Custom 2 finally made a debut in one of my mods. That room was very much a decision that I made. I wanted something with reverse gravity in the mod, since Locoroco has a couple of reverse gravity sections-ish in Kalokaro and Chapawar. The rotated... I think I went a bit overboard on that one. Room 4 is empty. I went back and edited the final segment of Room 4 to be more detailed after midway point, and of course removed the tunnel to the void, and increased the room length a bit to accommodate. It's also where you unlock co-op mode. Yeah, co-op mode is locked until after Kalokaro. Chapawar. Chapawar kinda went through development hell. Room 1 and 3 were absolutely hell to figure out what I wanted to do for them. Room 1 was easy-ish. I wanted jumping blocks, but I didn't exactly know how to implement them, so I kinda copied a bit from Checkpoint 10 Room 3, because that was where I got the idea from. Swapped around the palettes a bit, of course. And the custom block. You probably noticed the custom texture. If you load that without the custom PNG no wait, I shouldn't be saying what happens. It's ugly. There we go, it's ugly. Room 2, this is where rotation finally gets introduced to the player. All the way in Checkpoint 4, Chapawar Room 2. I wanted rotation to be in the mod from the beginning, but I just didn't know where to implement it. Another room later originally had rotation, but was cut. The panels that fly around were entirely copied from Checkpoint 10 Room 4. I'm pretty sure that... No, wait, that's not the one with sinusoidal rotation. Which one? That's a later room. Hold on. It's weird, you know? Checkpoint 4, Room 2. It was kind of weird. Chapawar Room 3 was easily one of the hardest rooms to figure out in Classic. Originally, it was going to have reverse gravity like Kalokaro Room 3, but that was eventually scrapped and the room got entirely reworked into what it was today. I wish I still had the old files, but unfortunately I lost them at some point and they don't exist anymore. But it did get reworked into what it is today. Again, more copying from Checkpoint 10 Room 3. And then you have Room 4. I admitted it was entirely copied from Checkpoint 10 Room 4, down to the rotation it has in More Rooms Pack. And then we have Delan Gomeri. Room 1. There was a bit of a slight communication mishap after I put out the video. Rantis actually responded saying that he could make versions of the track to more fit, And then I tried to explain it that I wanted the 2 sections before it, custom versions of those for Perkuloka. And then he sent me a like 50-second audio, longer than Smash Hit normal music normally allows. Again, I used the trick of using the target length, splitting that in 2 and having a segment in the middle. And then I queued additional segments after that to make it harder. Room 2 was originally going to rotate. That's all I really care about for that one. It's kind of a nothing burger of a room. Oh, and then there's room 3. Room 3 was reused from a segment of what was going to be More Rooms Pack Expansion 2 LGBTQ Room 2, the gender fluid colors room. It was revamped like basically entirely into Room 3 of Delanga Mary. Room 4, it's just Checkpoint 9, Checkpoint 11, Checkpoint Sun from More Rooms Pack. The final rooms of those. The tunnel, I wanted to differentiate it from the other base tunnels in the game. So I added a bit of texturing to it by having the tubes that go out to the sides. Because I think that was a thing in a dream I had at one point. And then we have the Bui Bui Fort Endless Zone. No, wait, I shouldn't cover that quite yet. There's still other things to cover. Co-op was not originally in the plan for the mod at all. It was later added after I realized not many mods even touch co-op. There's probably a good reason for that. Franzia Room 1. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it in retrospect. It was kind of unbalanced. Room 2 also kinda hard, especially Room 2's segment with the 3 bars horizontally that kinda require both players to hit it to avoid crashing. It was kind of not the best decision I made. Room 3, though. Room 3 was really fun to develop. Had to get some help from Yorshex to do it. The room split between the left and right segments. The left and right are 2 entirely different segments loaded. Same with another later room, but I had the idea of having a door there that both players would have to open to actually progress and not immediately fail. And the button being on the other player's side, and that only really works when the 2 rooms are completely separated from each other. Room 4. I'm gonna be blunt. Room 4 could have been better. But that leads to Perkuloka, the one that took the longest to develop. Room 1, I kinda knew what I wanted to do for Room 1 from the very beginning. What was it called? What was the sketch1_jojab.org or something like that in my private music files. I reused that from JoJab Room 4. I felt it really worked with the upbeat nature of Perkuloka, like the bright, colorful, really fun gameplay it normally has in the games. And I think I captured that pretty well with the music choice. Not the rooms, not the rooms, they could have easily been better. Room 2, spinning, I'm pretty sure that... No, wait, the sinusoidal rotation one was Franzia Room 3. Room 2, it rotates. It rotates. I used one of the tracks from Pedro Barretti. I don't know if I don't remember its name in my files. But it also has a middle segment. It's basically Dylan Gomeri Room 2, but better. In like every regard. Rooms 3 and 4 use the tracks I was trying to explain I wanted to Rantis. I could have done that better. I actually had like an FL screenshot at one point, but I kinda forgot. And things could have been better on both ends. Room 3, there was this weird, annoying problem where the elevator grids went too high in one part and could hit the player without anything they could do about it. Particularly the player on the right side that was affected by it. There's also this currently a problem that I'm planning on removing before full release. The propeller being way too... the elevator grids being too close to the propeller, to the point where it breaks the propeller. That room was the hardest to make. There were like 3 different concepts before the final one. And then we have room 4. It's free. The only obstacles in there are score stars that can't even hit you. And that leads to the conclusion of a brief tangent from earlier. Endless. Endless is shared between both Classic and Co-op, and actually received some adjustments for Co-op. Endless Room 1, a custom GeoJab. It was the room I figured out the quickest of Endless. It's based on Endless Space Room 1. And doesn't really have anything too much to note other than the co-op changes. The bars are intentionally placed to block co-op players as well. And certain segments have adjustments to accommodate for the split screen and different distance. Room 2 of Endless. It's internally called Ver 1 through Ver 4. Ver 2. The Ver 2 and Ver 4's rotation depends on where you are in Endless. It can rotate differently. And because of that, I kinda had to make sure it was completable on any of the rotation settings and not to go too overboard with them. In normal, there's just a glass door in one segment, but in co-op, they're kinda like Franzia Room 1, not Room 1, Room 3, where it's as the split where one player needs to open the door for the other player. Room 3, I'm gonna be honest, it was kind of plagiarized from Cave 3, Room 3. At least I'm pretty sure that's the one. I think it's the one that has 29.og, the same as Checkpoint 9 base Room 3. But it's very different in how the obstacles are laid out. And in co-op, there's a split part, where in normal there'd just be a straight path. Room 4. Continuing on the tangent from Kalo Karo Room 2. This was the other room that was basically meant to be Checkpoint 10 Room 2. super fast. I think it maxes out at 700 room length. Jesus. But it's clearly the room that's meant to kill you. It is the part where you die. I expect half of Endless Runs to die at some variation of that room, or because of some variant to that room. It's that much of a problem. In later Endless variations, you don't see this in the first one. Only on the third and fourth time you see the room, the amount of propellers doubles. And that's on top of the 600 speed the room has at that point. Plus the extremely fast reaction time you'd have to spam out all the Nitro Balls to avoid crashing in the middle. And that's kind of it for the main checkpoints. That leads to the extra modes. The boss rush, Geojab boss. It was kind of made on a whim to give the mod a bit of extra content, because some people gave it the completely wrong interpretation of what its boss room would be like. Currently in full release, it's just a 2-cell, but originally it was a Matryoshka. Franzea boss, 2 single-cell. It's nothing to note other than the moving bar. I kind of wanted the idea of having the bosses have unique obstacles before them, but that kind of didn't work. Champlin, Kalokaro, Chapoar, and Perkuloka's boss rooms never got finished. Dolangomeri, 4-arm telecube, a callback to what Champlin's would have been, a 2-arm telecube. But that one's really annoying. Trans Room. That one was originally a segment from Not 126. I later turned it into a full room, planning to use it for More Rooms Pack Expansion 2 before that plan fell through. There's a room after it. It's just a room. Factory 2. Factory 2, Room 1. That's kind of just there out of obligation rather than anything, because it's the only other room that ever got finished of that checkpoint. Room 2, however, that one was the inspiration for both Kalokaro 2 and Bui Bui 4. For some reason, the 2 segments that inspired it just don't load. But I assure you that was the inspiration for them. A Nitro Balls segment. It gives you a Nitro Balls and immediately requires you to use it. Kind of like the other 2 I mentioned. And that leaves the last few rooms of the mod. The April Fool's segment, also known as Smash Hit Zones. The Zone 0 one. It's based on the part before you actually go in the building in Zone 0 of Off. There's not really much to it. Zone 1's room is based on the meat fountains of Alma. The part where you ride a pedalo through the meat fountains to solve puzzles and fight some burns. Room 2 was based on the... Zone 2's room was based on the mall maze. It was also the one I chose to reuse for a purified room. Other than that, it's not much to note. The Zone 3's room is based on the mini-game where you fall down a tube and have to collect add-ons. I didn't exactly know how to implement that, so I kind of just turned gravity off and made it rotate and put some boxes in there. It's the room with the most segments of the April Fool's parts. And then we have the room, also known as Zone 4, or Subterrano. It's based on the ending sequence before you have to choose to fight either the judge or the batter. And at the end you can kind of see it purify, or turn grayscale. And that was an interesting choice I made, as opposed to having a tunnel to endless mode, which would have been the purified zones. One of each of the 3 numbered zones that are Zone 0, since Zone 0 never purifies them off. And that concludes the developer commentary for Tuk-Tuk's Lokoroko themed smash hit mod, formerly known as JoJab Hit. Yeah.